What's up, guys? It's Rev here again to talk to you today about strikers. We had a request on one of our videos by WH Tam who wanted me to make a video on that, so here we are doing exactly that. If anybody else has a request, feel free to post it in the comments and we'll get to it as soon as possible. So we're going to launch right into it because we have a lot to talk about. So we're looking at Paper Adonis right now. Not necessarily the best person in the strike position, but pretty good. So we're going to talk about strike point for a second. Strike point is the number at which your striker in the strike position can use his strike ability. So Adonis, for instance, has a 7,000 strike point. So the strike point is refilled by you attacking and you also being attacked, with the number of individual attacks being what increases that meter. When the meter gets to full, your striker can use their ability. So the higher your strike point is, the longer into the fight it's going to be before your striker can actually use their ability. So Adonis has a 7,000 strike point. If you were to use him in the strike position, I would say Arena is probably not a good place for it because a lot of times the match is over before you ever get to 7,000. What higher strike point strikers are for, I believe, is really PvE. So it's a longer match, you're fighting more people, you're being attacked, you're attacking them, and that increases your strike point faster. Not to mention you have a longer duration, we're talking 2 minutes, 3 minutes sometimes, to do what you are doing in the PvE content. Okay? So he comes down with solid stance, he makes you invincible for 8 seconds, and he deals 450% of his defense when the shield is dispelled. So while I would not recommend him as a striker, why? Because he really should be in your main team. He's one of the best people in the game, so I would just use him in your main 3. But if you wanted to use someone else and you put him in the strike position, I would save that for PvE. Alright, let's keep it moving. We're going to talk about somebody who I've seen a few times in high level arena. Not a whole lot, but this is one of the highest multipliers I've seen thus far in a strike skill. So this is shreekant. It's got a 6,000 strike point, which is not bad. That's, probably 2,000 higher than the lowest being Paper Kerr. I don't know if any other champs have a 4,000 strike point because none of them were meta relevant if they did. So with 3 debuffs on your enemy, you're going to do 1,650% of your attack power. It's pretty amazing. And then you're going to reduce one ally skill cooldown by 3 seconds upon critical hit. We're not sure which one. It doesn't say a random one. It usually says that. But that is pretty good. So I would recommend if you have Tasia Paper, maybe try to build a debuff comp and let me know in the comments how that goes, because I'm interested in that. Alright, so we're talking about 4 stars right now. Sierra can accomplish the same kind of thing as Adonis. So Sierra is the actual beast, so we'll just say it because it's a beast. Alright, so it can come down at 7,000. It's kind of a high strike point just like Adonis. Comes in, does 650% of defense, ignores 80% of the defense, and creates a shield that reflects damage. So that's pretty good. You should be seeing a trend with the shield strike points. They're usually higher because that's really strong. Okay, so we're going to talk about perhaps the best striker, in my opinion and others' opinions, Rock Tyler. Rock Tyler has an amazing, it's 5,000 on the strike point, which is really where you want to be, I believe. It's at least for PvP, which is where I think strikers are super important. So Arcane Shot does 1,300% it can of your attack power based on your crit rate. It ignores 80% of defense upon critical hit and increases crit damage by 40% for 12 seconds. If you play Arena, this has happened to you. You've been about to win, you've been, oh man, I've got 25,000 health and they're at like 10 or 12, and Tyler comes out and just kills your whole dream. Just puts it in the ground, puts dirt over the top, puts a little flour, you know, maybe burns some candles or something, and you're dead. It's over. Not only is he doing massive damage to you, he increases everyone else's damage. It's just super good. So if you have Rock Tyler, make sure not to feed him, put lots of crit rate on him, and profit. Alright, so that's Rock Tyler. Scissors Tyler isn't bad. We'll talk about him just for a second, because if you don't have Rock Tyler like me, I fed him like a noob. Then Scissors Tyler is an okay. You see that the strike point is 2,000 higher, but what does that mean? That means the damage is going to be higher. That means it's going to have more impact. So maybe Scissors Tyler is more of PvE style. He does AoE damage based on it's 1600. Oh, look, there's another 1650. But that's based on your crit rate and ignores 80% of defense again, and he has 22% to cause bleeding. So when do we want to cause bleeding? On a high HP target. Let's do it to a boss. Let's do it to the enhancement bosses or any of those guys in Krosic. He could be good there. But again, PvP 7,000 is probably too high unless your attack speed on your hero is real high. Okay, so that's all we really have to talk about here. If there's a champ I missed that you want me to talk about in a later video, just put it in the comments. I don't mind at all. But in the vein of making this as brief as possible, we want to get to the major hard hitters. Speaking of hard hitters, Paper Fran. Paper Fran really can be good in any position on the team, but I just noticed today how good that strike is. I mean, I've had it happen to me, and it's been good or bad depending on what the battle was doing at the time. She has a 5,000 strike point. Damage in a line equal to her defense, so she's another one of those really good bruisers in the game. Ignores 80% of defense, and if the allies have buffs, so you just make a team with a bunch of buffs, she does even more damage, 975% possible of her defense. So that's really strong. All right. But she's a really strong champ, so you would have to really think about, do I want to run her in the main 3, or do I want her in the strike position? Okay, the same thing here with Scissors Carlotta. Scissors Carlotta is super good in the main 3. She has a little heal, and she has some cooldown time reduction. Why would you not? I mean, if it's cooldown reduction, wouldn't that be great in the strike position? Yes, but the strike point is 8,000. That's really, really high, and it doesn't actually do anything other than increase increase the speed of your cooldowns by 200%. By 350% for 13 seconds on the strike. It's 200% on the regular skill. So it's a little stronger than the regular skill, but in PvP you're not going to get there. You really want to run her in your main 3 if you're going to run her for PvP, is my opinion on that. Alright, so we'll move along. We've got, let's see. Okay, Scissors Natalia. You've definitely seen this beautiful woman before. She's probably made you sad more than once. Her strike point is only 6,000. She does 1,200% of attack power, and her lifesteal is equal to 150% of the damage dealt. If she does a crit, 250. I mean, it is amazing, and it's a circular move, so it hits more than one thing. I really think she's wonderful in PvE and can be good in PvP. I used to run her, and there were plenty of times I was made sad by the fact that she never came out. But if she does come out, it's a big swing, okay? You swing your HP up, their HP down, and suddenly you've caught up in the match. Okay. Now we're going to talk about, this guy is just great in any position, just like Paper Fran. This is Paper Chrono. He is the secret weapon that I talked about in an earlier video. He is amazing. If you have him, do not feed him. He is just incredible. I've literally summoned just to try to get him. It didn't work, but I did try. So, the damage isn't real strong, equal to 680% of attack power. He has a 75% chance to increase target skills cooldowns by 8 seconds and pause time for 8 seconds. If he makes your skills cooldowns 8 seconds higher in a match as the striker coming out in a late game time, you are going to lose. Like, that is amazing. So strike point is kind of high. 7,000 is going to be near the end of the match, but you just make sure your attack speed is high enough to where he gets out, and that's how you finish the match. All right. So we've got Eve Scissors here. She is very good. She's kind of like Adonis when she comes down in the strike position. Her strike point is 7,000, and she creates a shield that makes you invincible for 6 seconds, and you recover 900% of her defense as HP. So pretty good, not a lot to say there. Probably better for PvE. I like to sometimes run her and Paper Adonis for things that like just, it's crazy damage. But she's also good. Let's look at her skill 1, or skill 2, sorry. Just, you know, a heal and it removes debuffs. She's just like a healer cleanser. So she's pretty good in the main 3. Can be good in the strike position if you're looking for a shield to come down kind of late into the match. Alright, that's it for 4 stars on Medina. We're going to move on to Inua. We're going to talk about ya boy, Scissors Yanuk. Okay. He is good in the strike position. The strike point is 6,000. He has a recovery ban, which means your opponents can't heal. I think that's very good. It hasn't worked too well against me because I don't run healers in arena. Heal arenas. But it's really good against people who run any kind of heal. He has AoE damage equal to 970% of his attack power, and if the target's HP is 60% or less, he deals massive damage. So what is this good for? Execute. So even though his strike point is 6,000, you might want to wait on this until your opponent is low enough to where you can just go ahead and burst them out. Alright? Moving right along. How's everybody doing today? I hope you have a good day. I hope you're having a good day already. But if you're not, have a good day. One thing I wanted to talk about just quickly is Kerr. Everybody, I mean, compared to his brother, no, not super strong. But let's just talk about this strike ability here. His strike point is 6,000, not bad. AoE damage equal to 75% of his max HP, which is going to be pretty high because he's a Kerr. If the team's current HP is 70% or more, you deal 97% of your max HP. So we're talking about 20,000 damage in one strike, and you recover 22% of that max HP upon skill activation. So 5,000, something in that area, you know. So that's not bad. If you have Kerr, try him in the strike position. Let me know how that works out. Because I've been interested in him. Like, I'm interested in Tasia. You don't see them in the meta, but I think they could be relevant. Paper Kerr. A lot of people have said that Paper Kerr would be a good striker because his strike point is so low. It's only 4,000. But I really think you can have someone who does more in the strike position than Kerr. And Kerr does so much in the main 3, why would you put him in the strike position at all? So, Bear Hook, single target damage, not too much. 42% chance to stun. I mean, that is good, but he has that in the main 3 also. Remove a buff from the target ×2. So if you are going to use Kerr, and this is kind of like, his strike point is 4,000, but that's a little misleading because I think the best time to use this is when your opponent uses the Adonis shield. So you can just remove that. It's not a chance to remove it. It removes it. Just, it's gone. And even if they have like an attack boost or defense boost, you're going to remove 2 of them. So it's pretty likely that you're going to remove that Adonis shield, and that is very important. So you might want to wait till you see that or another buff that you want to remove if you're going to use Paper Kerr in the strike position. He is the best. Alright, Rakhi Ona. Rakhi Ona is the best healer in the game right now. Her strike skill is 6,000. Strike point, 6,000. Immediate HP recovery equal to 6% of team HP and 75% of her HP. And then you can have that same shield that you would get in the normal game. You'll get 70%, or you'll get 25% of the max team HP for 13 seconds as a shield. So that's pretty good. You want to use her pretty early before you're really hurt if you're in PvP. That way you can get that shield, because that can be quite strong if you use it at the right time. But otherwise, I mean, it's kind of underwhelming. But it can be very good, and I've seen multiple teams who run her as striker. Alright, moving down, we got this little lady, Rakhi Ona, who I think is actually really great in the strike position, and I will probably be building as my next striker to experiment with. The strike point is only 6,000. AoE damage is about 1,000%. Ignores defense upon critical hit and silences for 8 seconds upon critical hit. Silence might as well be a stun. You can't use any of your abilities. So if you have Julian or somebody like that who's a high attack champ, and they're just mowing you down with regular basic attacks, then sure, it's not that strong. But silence for 8 seconds has been very good in my experience. So if you have her, do not feed her. Try her in the strike position. Let me know if you like it. All right. Gonna keep going. I use an Ebony Maw, which I've decided is her name because it's beautiful. I use the rock one myself because I built one for guild like conquest. Because she has a good bleed, and I can pair her with Paper Kerr, and there's a lot of bleeding going on. But her strike point is pretty good, and I've used that in a few different scenarios because her leader skill in the strike position is 15% crit damage to your entire team. So that is very good, and I'll show you that leader skill. Crit damage of ally heroes by 15%. So, it's a single target damage, 500% of her attack power, 12% of enemies' current HP. So this is super good against high HP monsters. Remove 2 buffs from the target, and decrease an ally's cooldown by 5 seconds if the target faints, which means to die. So, what are we talking about? We're not talking about PvP, we're talking about PvE, where you're going to kill something and still be fighting. Okay. And I really like strike points at 5,000. That's my personal opinion. Everybody has their own, but that is just, I feel like, the best for PvP, which is kind of where I'm focused. At least for the time being. Alright. The scissors version of Ebony Maw is, has a poison, which is cool, especially if you're going to do one of those debuff teams that I keep talking about. She has 2 debuffs on this strike skill, poison and minus defense, so that's pretty good, and she does better damage than the rock version, 700%. Okay, moving right along. All right, I have used Kruger, I have used Thanatos, but that was when I was much newer to the game. I've seen probably 1 Thanatos in the meta high up. So you might want to give him a shot, but not really a lot going on there. Jin, we've got Scissor Shaolin. She's a great striker. Her strike point is 5,000, which is, it's just right where I want to be. If I wasn't using her on my main team like 100% of the time, then I might try her in the strike position. She stuns, she removes shields, she removes buffs, she basically just cleanses the enemy team of all of their buffs, and she has a 100% chance to remove their shields. So if you're trying to control what your opponent can do as far as buffs and doing more damage and having higher attack speed and maybe Adonis shielding, use her and it will go away. Okay? Alright. Moving along, This is somebody that I'm going to work on for this debuff team that I've been thinking about. His strike, it deals 900% of his attack regularly. If you have 3 debuffs, let's say, you do 1485% of attack power. And then he has 66% chance to increase their debuff duration. And he also removes 1 buff from the target. So he does a lot. He comes down, he hurts them a lot. He increases their debuff duration, which if you built a team around debuffs, they should have 3 or 4 different debuffs. And if you increase that duration by 8 seconds, they're going to be debuffed for a long time. Alright. So Zhao, Tasia, these champs, I feel like they're gonna get some love coming on down the road, and that is gonna be really fun, I think, because it's gonna be bursty. You're gonna do a bunch of debuffs, but not a lot of damage, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, your opponent is dead. I wanted to talk about, these are 2 4-star options, because, I mean, we talk a lot about 5 stars, like they're the only useful people in the whole game, but some of these 4 stars are really good, especially when you're working your way up. So you might want to build one, maybe put it to 5-star max, not really 6-star it. And they are the Wukongs. These guys, they're not bad, especially in the strike position. Strike point 7,000, ignores defense. He's got a 70% chance to launch for 5 seconds. That is really good. It might as well be a stun. And it removes a buff from the target 2 times. I'm not sure what the difference is between X2 and 2 times. It sounds like the same thing to me, unless maybe they got a buff in between. I'm not sure. But removes 2 buffs, launches, ignores their defense. The strike point's a little high, but in the early game, you know, the matches are going to go maybe longer. We'll look at his brother over here. Scissors Wukong. Right? No, Rock Wukong. We just talked, man. Tell you what. Okay. Wukong clone attack, 5,000 strike point. AoE damage equal to 25% of his max HP and 450% of his attack. So you want to kind of build him as a hybrid, it seems like. Ignore 65% of target's defense. And you have a 43% chance, which means it's going to happen, chance to blind for 12 seconds. Blind is very, very good. Very strong. Great debuff. Alright, so those are the Wukongs. The other thing I wanted to talk about are the Tao Kais. I used these guys when I was first, maybe level 10 through 20 something, before I got the Nat 5s and really OP monsters to put in the strike position. These guys have good strike abilities. Rock Tao Kai strike point is 5,000. He deals 690% of his attack power, and he increases everybody's attack crit damage, which is pretty good. For 12 seconds, but you got to make sure he crits also. And the Rapid Fist looks super cool. If you guys want to see that, I'll just... For just this one, it's actually pretty cool. Like, one of the reasons that I built him in the early game was because someone else did it to me, and I was like, oh god, I need that. Look at, isn't that cool? And his little plus crit damage. Okay. So the other Tao Kai is a little like the strike point is a little higher, and you're going to get a little more for your buck there. 6,000 strike point. He knocks him back, increases his attack, 1150% of attack power, and he increases allies' attack power by 55% for 12 seconds. So that's pretty good. If you are starting in the game and you get this guy and you don't have a lot of options, I would definitely build him because, I mean, it's a crowd control. He's going to buff your team. It's pretty good. All right. Okay. Last but not least, Traegar. So, we want to talk about Julian for sure. I like him in the main 3 because he spotlights, and Spotlight is super strong. But if you've already got other stuff in the 3 main positions and you're looking for a striker and you happen to have Julian, he's definitely not a bad option. His strike point is only 5,000, which means he's going to come out. He does single target damage, which, you know, is probably for PvP. And it's 1,000%, and he ignores 80% of defense upon critical hit. Julian is the most straightforward of the strikers. He's going to try to kill someone in PvP. He's going to try to burst them down, and that's going to be all she wrote. Okay? Okay. I use Helga, although she's not the most overpowered of the strikers. She gives you a status resist decrease to your enemies. And if the target's HP is 50% or less, she does damage equal to 980% of her attack power. Why do I use her? Because her strike point is 5,000. She reduces their resist, so I can come out after the strike, after my cooldowns have been reduced, and have a greater chance to stun or in any way disrupt my enemy. And then it's pretty good damage. It can be an execute, but I wouldn't necessarily wait for the HP to be 50% or less, because it's an early strike point and you get those cooldowns, and really that's what I was looking to do. I want my striker to come out early in the match, and then I want to have my abilities be available. Talk about Paper Helga right quick. Her strike point's a little higher, I believe. Let's see. Yep, 6,000. She increases your status activation chance by 60%. And the damage dealt by allies by 60%. So pretty good. Doesn't come down and do any damage. No crowd control. You can run her if you have her, and she'll buff your team. I really feel like maybe their strike points should have been switched. Like maybe more damage on Helga, and Paper Helga comes down at 5,000 and buffs your team for the duration. But they are not. Wishful thinking, right? Okay, Gunther is great. I mean, is it just a regular attacker, so not a lot going on there. Let's see. We wanted to talk about one of the Sofias. One of the Sofias is kind of surprising. Let's see. Let's just, yeah, Paper Sofia right here was pretty surprising. Check out this little girl's strike point. It's 7,000. It's kind of high, but 1,260% of attack power. If they have 2 debuffs, you can do 1,764% of your attack power, and she has a 12% chance to decrease their defense. That is pretty good. She's a 4-star. Nothing too crazy. I've never seen her in Arena. I just wanted to mention her because I was looking at all of the strike points and all of the strike moves and their damage, and so I have a pretty good understanding of where the damage, you know, ranks as far as different champs. So I wanted to mention that because I was kind of surprised. If you have her and you don't have another striker, and you're early on in the game, this might not be a bad choice. No, we don't want that. We don't want Aslan. I'm pretty sure he's not a good striker. We wanted to talk about one of the Isaacs. Rock Isaac. He has a 6,000 strike point. AoE damage equal to 900%, which if you've been watching is not crazy. But he has 2 different debuffs that he has an 18% chance to proc. Now, what I've seen in the game is that the chance of you actually landing it is higher than the number on the skill. I'm not sure if anybody else has experienced that, but I believe if you put this guy in the strike position, he would silence and shock. Don't build him too high before you test that, but I think that he could be useful if you have him. One thing I noticed, not a lot of strikers in Tragar. Don't know why that is. Maybe it's just not their way. They don't know the way. Okay, yeah, people are out there rolling their eyes. I understand. I'm with you. Let's see. We looked at Duke just briefly. He has 7,000 strike point, immediate HP recovery, 7% of team HP, and 70% of his HP. He increases status resist, and he has a 70% chance to remove 1 debuff from allies. The reason this guy kind of interested me was that that's just interesting. At a 7,000 strike point, you know, you could bring him in, increase your status resist, heal up, shield up, and basically restart the fight with the ability to pretty much resist anything that was going to happen as long as you've got those resistance crests. Guys, get those resistance crests for PvP. Absolutely necessary. Okay, that is about all. I'm sure that there are other people that maybe you're using, and feel free to mention in the comments, Rev, you didn't talk about this guy. Yeah, I understand. I mean, I probably missed someone in all of these champs. Um, so basically what you want to remember is your strike point is like the money you pay, and you need to make sure that the strike move, the actual ability, is worth that money. Because the longer it takes to get to it, the more likely you're going to be dead before it ever hits the ground. I really enjoyed using those Tao Kais, but in the later on game, it was like these guys aren't doing enough. And you need to do kind of a lot. You know, you need to come down. It's the strike point. The battle is almost over. You're hurt. Your abilities are exhausted. Maybe you're stunned or knocked back because you can still strike even if you're all CC'd. So this is an important part of any good team, and so think long and hard about how you want to do it, because it is very important and can be the win or the loss for you in any given situation. All right. Like, comment, subscribe if this video was helpful to you. Put in the comments if you guys want a video on anything else in particular, or all the things that I screwed up on. I love to hear about that. And we'll see you in the next one. You guys have a great